Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the module 8 under the course of UN SDGs. This module covers identifying probable interventions for sustainable development and framework and structuring of 17 SDGs. So the first topic, identifying probable interventions for sustainable development. So let's see the problem. SD that satisfies the requirements of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generation to satisfy their own needs. Well, this was the premise on which definition of SD was formed, is what is meant by sustainable development. Yeah, this view of sustainability has come under fire for being anthropocentric and placing human needs ahead of the needs of other animals and the environment. So if you see, there is a some another like a perspective to put humans on this definition, that humans are like kept at first and rest of the other species are like falling behind. So some course correction like a demand for that. So there has also been concern that fulfilling demands may encourage excessive consumption, particularly in the global north. This is the highest consumer like a countries and locations, and support ongoing resource exploitation from the global south. Yeah, so global south has been the supplier to the north all along, and this exploitation has been happening for a long time now and still continues. So these two contesting perspectives on like a definition of SD, like that Brundtland's Commission's definition of sustainability. The problem for NGOs, governments, foundations and academia is that the term sustainable has been co-opted to mean whatever the user wants it to mean, since it has never been well defined or possibly even understood. Well, we have discussed earlier, since this like a term of sustainability is an evolving concept, right? It's dynamic in nature, so its meaning is not fixed. Earlier it used to mean something. Now there are a lot of things which has fallen under scope of sustainability, and in future also it may change. Multilaterals use it to justify export promotion, corporations use it to promote their goods. So if you see, like and multiple ways like people have started like making use of this. Yeah, and to promote their goods or gain consumer loyalty. NGOs use it to develop programs, apply for grants, raise money while signaling their concern for environmental concerns. Yeah, so like misuse of like a certain things. So well, it started with the noble cause. That's like a very nice, but then it became kind of like a trending thing, right? How things actually start taking become a trend. They come in the vogue, right? They stay for some time. Now everybody starts speaking the same terms. Everybody starts relating themselves with that, even though they are not particularly doing the the intended like a thing, but they try molding their own presentations through this trending like a philosophy, right? So it is said that this kind of phenomena has also happened with this word sustainable. So that's why there are like a certain concerns, because the real environmental concerns are now getting like a masked behind like these some other their own like a private or industrial like a concerns. For three reasons, it is crucial for the development community to have a common knowledge of the fundamental components of sustainability and a dedication to continuing to evaluate these components after a program is over. First of all, when a new program starts, whether it's aimed at bettering livelihoods, access to energy, clean water or improved health, it creates expectations in the community. So, yeah, at community level, this raises moral dilemmas. Is it okay to set higher standards when it's uncertain whether program advantages will endure? Is it reasonable to expect communities to invest their time, money and faith in an activity if we are not confident enough that it will produce long-term streams of benefits? So the contesting like a thoughts raise like these questions, whether like this as a collective like a effort is really going to bear like a fruits to its fullest like a level. So this is one of the like a thoughts behind the contesting like a thoughts. Do we who work in development also have a duty to avoid harming others? Do we have faith that suggested activity won't increase participants' vulnerability? Have our activities hindered future access to environmental services and thereby harm intergenerational fairness? For instance, if a program is presented that raises wealth in the short term but damages an environmental resource. So, of course, like now these actually become like a problems, and this can be actually understood by drawing maybe causal mappings or like a systemic mapping diagrams and all of that to understand what is going on like a qualitatively at certain place involving like a subjective like a actors. Okay, and by studying their interrelationships, how it is happening to whom and all of those like interconnections, results can be drawn to take a call whether to go ahead with certain like a policy or not. So yeah, environmental systems as sealed structures. By enabling us to see feedback loops and causal links, systems thinking can assist in tracing the relationship between economic social change and environmental restrictions. Systems thinking is frequently used by evaluators to replicate the theory of change of a program. This method may also be used to include a sustainability idea into the design of programs. A theory of sustainability can be used to show how the design of a program can lead to sustainable outcomes and impacts, as well as how interventions affect limited environmental resources and services, such as linking hypotheses are used to show how activities lead to outcomes and outcomes to impact. So interconnections of these and their impacts. When he compared the cowboy economy to a spaceship economy in 1996, Ken Balding inspired us to think of growth with limits. That is, we should approach how we grow not as if we have unlimited resources at our disposal, but as if we are all on a spaceship where what we use and discard is constrained. So very interesting, like an analogy, okay, of a spaceship, right? Rather than a cowboy economy where you have like a liberty and like a force that you go and grab whatever you want. Okay, compared to that, perhaps you are sitting on maybe a spaceship, rather, and you have to fly up to far away, like a places, and there are like a limited resources available onto this. Okay, and how you are going to survive it, in that like a long period of time. That's according to that, you need to consume your resources, because resources on a spaceship are not available in finite like a quantity, but they are constrained, right? So this is an interesting analogy. If you consider our planet as a spaceship, which I think actually in this whole like a scale of cosmos, it is really as in like spaceship for us, where we are able to get this like living conditions, because nowhere else we have found any another ship or like any other maybe mother planet or something like that where we can go as a like a backup, right? There is no backup, right? So Earth doesn't have a backup, it's just one and only. Okay, so in case of one and only planet, okay, there is no backup, so you have to take care of this ship. Otherwise, if this ship is doomed, all the inhabitants of this planet are also doomed, right? As simple as that. It's not a rocket science to understand. So definitely I'm sure like we all can relate to this now. This necessitates that the interaction between the social, economic, and environmental systems can be explained in the program design. Communities must participate in the creation process and learn to be innovators, problem solvers, and managers in order to catalyze or expand their potential. Communities are not merely partners, they are also the main players. The community must assume that NGO's responsibility is for the program if it is to be sustained. Additionally, the program should affect change by combining local assets with fresh information, knowledge, and outside resources. Okay, so now we'll be moving on to the topic 2, framework and structuring of 17 SDGs. We'll see how like these SDGs are laid and they are like conceptualized. What is the order and what is the pattern in which they are arranged. When what is that like a philosophy behind like their arrangement. Like we saw like it starts with the like a poverty, hunger, well-being, and then goes on to the like a world level like this thing. Okay, so SDGs are an international agenda. Well, what we already know that all nations must follow, because it's a collective thing. The United Nations has set objective of mobilizing action on the aforementioned 17 aspects, wishing to put an end to poverty, safeguard the environment, and guarantee that everyone lives in peace and prosperity. The worldwide SDG index score and SDG dashboard both assist in indicating how well the target is currently being implemented. So maybe SDG index score and SDG dashboard, I would recommend you guys immediately search for this and see it for yourself. You know, like a countries, our own country India, different states, and how they are doing it. You will find like interesting data from there. Each nation needs accurate data and precise measurements to assess its situation, create a plan for accomplishing the objectives, and monitor progress. Building a statistical system to collect complete cross-country data is an essential, we have discussed earlier. With agreed upon statistical criteria has, however, always been problematic. Although some countries have started voluntary national evaluations of the SDGs progress, they do so using unreliable, incomparable measures. Different countries compare with their own parameters, and then it becomes difficult to compare then those countries. In that context, like this slide is there. The Sustainable Development Solution Network (SDSN) and the Stiftung jointly issued the inaugural SDG Index and Dashboards in July 2016 to help nations assess current SDG baselines and guide future development. 17 SDGs that were agreed by world leaders. The United General Assembly in September 2015 are in line with the conceptual framework, 169 additional aims and methods with indicators, etc. Yeah. There are more markers now as more information becomes available. So if you refer these tables, these dashboards, you will see in what format this data are presented, right? So in that you will see a lot of markers. The SDGs are a part of the dynamic agenda that includes the statistical community. As the report's authors first admit, as new data become available, the basket of indicators changes from year to year. Based on efforts made at an international level to raise the caliber of the measures taken to monitor SDGs, the methodology for several indicators has also been improved. This implies that findings from the SDG index and dashboards cannot be directly compared from year to year. Because even you must remember those parameters and those final points on which it is calculated also keeps on changing and improving over the years. So over the years data, if you want to compare, you remember this fact that they are not equally on the same parametric scale. The 17 SDGs are the final overarching framework, no reclustering of the goals. Okay, so as long as these SDGs are there, they are going to be in this format only. The SDG index and dashboards uses 17 SDGs as the final overarching conceptual framework. The report does not recognize goals into the subcategories such as the 5 Ps. These are there for conceptual clarity and all of those things. Okay. But you remember what capacity they come, or between economics, social, environmental, governance related goals. Beyond the fact that there are no agreements on the reclustering of these goals, the authors also argue that SDGs are an overarching framework that encourages policymakers to incorporate each dimensions into policy making process and not just sit in silos. Non-official data help bridge current data gaps. The report focuses on data available at the moment, considering that official indicators are not sufficient to monitor comprehensively the implementation. But yes, majority of them they do, and UN actually body keeps on taking feedback from different countries, and they keep on working on this. Yeah, sometimes data collection methods also, if you see, there are technology based tools also, like satellite imagery to understand what is going on at a certain a place in terms of maybe a green cover, loss of green cover, or maybe damage to the river, at the rate at which construction is happening or infrastructure projects are going on, and all of those kind of things. Yeah, it requires estimating absolute country performance based on distance to invariant sustainable development targets. The report focuses on absolute country performance, not related to other countries' performance, and normalizes each indicator from 0 to 100, where 100 corresponds to determined technical optimas. Yeah. So yeah, these data and these results, they are openly and publicly available, to the audience. Every year, you may have been seeing for quite a number of years now that there are annual reports coming out, on the implementations and a feedback. and national reports are also published. If you refer Niti Aayog's like a website, you'll get details of like a previous years like a data from India. That report, entire report, the comprehensive report is available for you to download freely in PDF format. The SDG index and dashboard results are accessible for free online. Yeah, I just suggest. So this kind of data are like freely available. Maybe you can make best use of it and download those for your reference. Okay, so global relevance and applicability to a broad range of country settings for like an indicator selection. The indicators are relevant for monitoring achievement of SDGs and applicable to the entire continent. Okay, so as we have like a seen earlier. Okay, statistical sufficiency. The indicators used are credible and accurate matrices through which only they actually calculate it like efficiently on quantified like a manner. Timeliness, the indicators chosen are current and released on dependent timetable. Data quality, data series come from reliable sources like peer-reviewed publications and official national and international sources. Like as I said, if UN wants to, if UN has to take data from India, so that's going to talk to like a nodal agency, Niti Aayog. Yeah. This SDG score, index score represents a country's location between worst possible 0 to best possible target, so between 100 to like a 0. Okay. Yeah. So on an average, if you see there are like a slabs, maybe you can refer to that present like a dashboard and see like where India is and where the other like a countries. So you'll get a fair idea like which country is lying where with respect to others. Yeah, one brief like that scale is given over here. So with 85, Sweden tops the list, and then Denmark, Finland, Germany, France, Norway, Switzerland, Slovenia, Austria, Iceland. Mostly European countries you will see like in this first list. Okay, and then comes Japan, Estonia, New Zealand, Ireland, etc. Canada, here, Slovak, Hungary, Latvia, Italy, Malta, Portugal, Poland, Bulgaria, etc. And then on this side we have 41st Israel, Cuba, Singapore, Romania, Azerbaijan, Ecuador, Georgia, Greece, Uruguay, Cyprus, etc. Lastly, I see here in this list Tunisia. Well, this list is not comprehensive. Not all countries are listed over here. Maybe you should refer the latest one. Yeah. So although the majority of G20 nations have begun SDG implementation, significant gaps still exist some places. Political administrative things also are discussed earlier. Results from a unique poll on national SDG implementation mechanisms reveal significant differences in the political leadership support for implementation of SDG among G20 nations. Well, so these are like a local kind of like a particular country based like observations by different like research agencies. Yeah. So well, it is difficult for everyone to come on the like a parity, because if you see even challenges challenging situations also differ. What are the problems in Africa perhaps is not even like a worth like a mentioning in European countries and all of that. Like, so for Africa these hunger, poverty is like extreme like a challenges, but for Europe the challenges are like something else. And similarly in like other continents and like group of nations, if you see they are fighting their own like real life situations. Okay, and the solutions also are sought like locally, and that is the like one observations. Conflicts cause reversal in SDG development. The majority of developing nations have made great strides in eliminating severe poverty in all of its manifestations, including lack of money, malnutrition, access to health and education facilities, and lack of basic infrastructure. Achievement gaps are more pronounced when it comes to universal secondary education completion. Conflict-ridden nations have seen some of the most abrupt setbacks, especially when it comes to reaching goals. Goal 1, no poverty, and 2, no hunger. Yeah. So this transition, from to sustainable production and consumption, from just like a production and consumption, to this sustainable production and consumption habit is moving too slowly. If you see in like a different countries, pace of change, through which like they are changing over the years. High income nations score poorly on goal 12, sustainable consumption and production. That means these things are still very high in like high income countries, right? And 14, environmental protection, life below water. The data for goal 14 indicates that majority of high-income nations have not made any advancements in recent years towards reaching the goal, even if it trends data for goal 12 are not yet available. Goal 15, life on land, trends like life was lacking. They demonstrate the need for further measures to save biodiversity and promote environmentally friendly production and consumption. High-income nations produce detrimental SDGs spillover effects. High-income nations have major spillover effects on the environment, the economy and the security that hinder other nations' efforts to attain the SDGs. However, spillovers vary greatly even among nations with comparable per capita incomes. This implies that nations may lessen their adverse spillover effect without lowering their per capita incomes. And lastly, better statistics are needed to address economic and social results that are unequal. Some countries' SDG index ratings have been lowered as a result of the recently introduced indicators for OECD nations that concentrate on disparities in economic, health, and educational results. This shows that there are huge gaps in guaranteeing that no one is left behind that aggregates data high. Okay, so yeah, a lot of challenges coming in from different countries. Since most non-OECD nations do not have access to such disaggregated data, more funding is required to close this information gap. Okay, more funding. You see, any effort requires funding. Now we will see, like some visuals to understand, like these, like a structuring and like a layouting, and how like like these SDGs are presented. Like for example, if you want to like see a country-based like a data, how it is like a typically presented. This is one of the slides where like a few countries are listed over here, from OECD, like like this group. So, and on this scale we have like SDGs 1 to 17, and on this we have the countries. We have Australia, Belgium, Canada. So you can see the greens, here in the first list, like a poverty wala, there are no reds, only oranges, yellows, and greens. Okay, that means among all any other like SDG, this is particularly nicely like taken care of, in like these like a group of countries, because there are like a most number of greens and yellows in this one, compared to any other ones, right? Yeah, so you can see like in Italy, Japan, Korea, this is yellow. Then we have Luxembourg green, Netherlands green, Norway green, Slovenia green, Sweden. Okay, and then here Germany, France, Finland, Denmark, Czech, Belgium, Austria. Yeah, and lastly, if you see this last, like a column here, and perhaps this one, seems to be like having the most number of reds. Perhaps this one has the like highest number of reds, right? And except 3 of oranges, this whole like a vertical is red. 3 oranges are like Mexico, Latvia, and Denmark. For climate change, this is SDG 13, like the climate change, this SDG. So most of them are in red only. Okay, that's definitely not an encouraging sight. So now we'll see like how these are like arranged. So this like analogy talks about on this side, if you see, there are like a governance, like a sustainability dimensions, economy, society, and planet, like these 3 ESEs, and the governance here. With respect to that governance, in this one directly 16 and 17 SDGs are kept. In economy related, we have this consumption, infrastructure, like occupation, livelihood, and all of them. And then in social level, we have like education, poverty, hunger, well-being, gender equality. And planet level, we have like life on land, water, right, and this forest and renewable energy and climate change related things. So this, if you see category wise, like environmental concerns here, social concerns here, economic here, and governmental concerns like over here. So on these, this is the like listing. From here, it imparts additional issues relevant to all countries. So business integrity, public finance, transparency. In this one, resource use And what has come back? Sustainable consumption and sustainable production, social integration and clean air. So here on the right side, we have start beginning from bottom to top, like one, and biodiversity, carbon quotient, oceans, land, forests. So these are all associated with environmental like issues. Here we have social related ones, then economy related ones, and governmental ones. Okay. So this is also one of the like ordering you can see, like in which order like these are arranged as compared to this one. And there is another. Okay. Here the things the researcher actually suggests like things begin with the quality education. Okay, because this quality education has potential to have impact on any and most of like these SDGs. See, we are also like studying and having like this course. We want to, because we want to study more and be aware of in full detail what these like things are. These red like a checkered boxes. At first like a glance they look very appealing, very nice, but what they are and what do they mean. Okay, so for that itself we are having like this course, and I'm sure this course is going to help you in multiple ways. So this is an overarching purpose of education also, that once like educated the person is going to contribute in the society, right? So this quality education, it begins like here, and it goes at three like places. It goes in the first one to the gender equality, and to the 13th here in the climate action and reduce inequalities. Since people it is expected that they are now aware of like real reasons what are behind inequalities. Okay, and if they work around that to like correct it. From here further it leads to affordable clean energy, climate action related things, sanitation, water, life, responsible consumption, industry innovations. Then again coming back to this sustainable cities and communities, because those are the like places where like a majority of like population is living, right? So, and then from here gender equality and reduce inequality side, it is feeding into the decent work and economic growth. Okay, so there are three inputs coming at this stage. Okay, and then again this whole thing which becomes part of the decent work, economic growth, and like a shared resources and all of those kind of things. Okay, so from there it has potential to like a touch upon positively to no hunger, zero hunger, and no poverty, etc., and overall lasting like things like peace, justice, cohesion, mutual collaboration, etc., etc. There are like a 12 levels given to this analogy. Another here it talks about like a prioritized like a scores of 17 SDGs at global and their regional differences. So you can see here on this wheel we have the SDGs. On this wheel also we have the SDGs, and then inside this you can see in the green color it is Asia, and blue color that is Europe, North America, and Oceania, and this orangish one is about Latin America, Caribbean, Africa, etc. So you can see who is having like how much of impact through this figure. Maybe you can refer this research paper separately. Another structure which talks about like a relationship between these 17 SDGs. So first you should see like this legend, the dark and thick line talks about like a major like a relationship. Then second we have medium, and the last one is the minor with the thin line. Okay, so well these two strongly influence everyone, because climate change, climate action like a phenomena is for everybody, right? It's not exclusive to a country or a community or a person. Okay, so that way, and overall partnership collaborations, so that happens at the global level anyways by default, and it influences everyone. After that like this quality education, if it is C, it is coming directly here to the clean energy thing. And then from here, as we saw in the previous like a slide, quality education leads to improved situation in gender equality, and water, land based like a life, water based like a life, and clean water, sanitation, and all of those things, because this is very very kind of individualistic and household based, right? And then finally it percolates to the like a zero hunger, overall well-being, because if your hunger is satisfied and nutritional values are maintained, okay, then only you can expect having a good like a physical health. From here, peace, justice, okay. On this side, we have no poverty, decent work, which strengthens this like peace, justice, and these institutions, and that has direct relations with reduced inequalities. If you are informed, if you are like aware, okay, you will definitely not fall prey to like a such like a old medieval age like a practices. Clean energy, infrastructure. So this has thinner line, but here we have like a strong line. Consumption and production, it involves in the city, and that is how these are arranged. So most lies analytical framework for a terrestrial approach to the SDGs. So in this one, you see there are like two edges on this side and this side. Here we have climate change, urbanization, underground, understanding the mega trends, geography of discontent, demography, digitization, global level pe, okay, regional to local, and here at the knowledge scale it goes national level to local level, and then perhaps like to the world level, okay. So planet, prosperity, partnerships, like all of those 5 P's are listed over here. And in between, if you see, there are these actors which are the drivers, to drive like these tools, which in turn drives policies and strategies, right, and make everything move, right, make the whole system move. So how it moves, you can see over here: global and context specific data indication, multi-level governance, functional and administrative approaches, financial investment and incentives, participatory policy making and bottom up, and all of these arrangements. You may search for this. This data is freely available over internet from OECD library. Yeah, another arrangement, it talks about 3 axes of governmental action in the province of this place, Cordoba, Argentina. So how they have kind of formatted and structured is very interesting to see. So in the first one, if you see, it talks about social justice, okay. So social justice cannot happen without like a people like a centric approach. Those they come first, and then poverty, hunger, well-being, quality education, and gender equality. You see the situation of majority of the developing world's countries, including our own, has this this kind of issues where we are still not very secure of like a food supplies to each and every member, right? So India is still kind of evolving. Well, it has evolved like nicely, is commendable like a work, but still there is like a room to progress and bring some change. Then in the sustainable economic growth, here we have like some listed SDGs here, few here. So with the prosperity, clean energy, decent like a work, and yeah, nice city location like habitation location. On the natural side we have planet, water, climate change, life. Lastly, we have strengthening the institutions, because institutions are the drivers, they give qualitative inputs to the society, to the government, to the people, and this actually must be maintained, because in the absence of this, there are value systems and like things very prone to like damages. So finally at this level, like institutional peace, prosperity, collaborations, those come. Vision and action for the SDGs Future City Plan in Kitakyushu, Japan. So this is actually taken from this source, from a city of Kitakyushu, in Japan. Okay, maybe you can refer. So in this one, how they have arranged, fostering a trusted green growth by with the true wealth and prosperity contributing to the world. So there is environment, social and economic, like 3 aspects, 3 pillars. From here, for the basic concept, it goes into creating new businesses to design a frontier city, creation of energy industries that will form the core of the new industry. Then at social level, creation of opportunities for all through actions on gender equity and other areas, improvement of quality of life through activities with the public participation. And in environment, we have development of an energy management and circular system as a model for other cities. Certain of stock-based society through the formation of a compact city, promotion of international contributions, making use of Kitakyushu technologies and experiences. Yeah. So parliaments and SDGs, how it is like related to them. So you can see presentation, localization, lawmaking, revising and adopting laws which directly support the various SDGs and the entirety of 2030 agenda. And then budgeting part, that funding part, scrutinizing national budget to see whether they deliver on SDG outcomes and deliver effectively target societies, most marginalized groups. So how this change comes, there is like this theory where we go for these steps, validate with evidence and stakeholder consultation. That's what we do every few months for SPGC or SUGC kind of like arrangements. Okay, so where like a feedback loop is analyzed and it is discussed in what ways like things can be improved in the next. So it goes from here, it gives you the focus. From focus, identify what is needed for change, reflect assumption and risk, analyze all of these together, and then go for like partners and actors and undertake like that change. Identifying actions to leave like no one behind. So what are the actions? So in this, if you see, individuals are kept at the heart of like this arrangement. Okay, like humans. Then comes the community. Subnational regions like states or particular regions, then covering the whole country, then goes global, international, with that overarching, like a sustainability, like dimensions. So in this one, we have ABCDEF, so prioritize actions addressing immediate and root causes that will have the biggest impact on those furthest, behind across the, SDGs. So in this one, you can see A, we have advocacy, create enabling environment, laws, policies and practices and institutions. B, and C, we have capacity development and supporting civil society. Community empowerment, enhance quality and accessibility of services, partnerships including civil society. So we'll see, like some more arrangements, like how these matrices are, like made. So you can see there are, like notations like dark red and 2 down arrows. That means it is in a critical situation, and lighter red 1 down arrow. That means it is in a bad situation. Then we have some like a gray ones. Perhaps that data is not available. Then we have light greens and upside, like a good, and then we have green and 2 arrows up, like satisfactory happy situation, and then we have like a best performance with the dark green and 3 arrows pointing up. And yeah, so SDG to SDG like relations, you can see like how the targets, like multiple targets from each SDGs, how they like interact. You can see 1.3 to like 1.5, right? So this is there. And then 1.3 to 2.2, what is happening? And here 1.3 to 10.1 is having the 3 like a dark green 3 arrows up. Okay, and the dark red ones I see 13.2 under climate like a crisis, that climate change, and then at the top we have 2.2, right? So this is in a very critical zone, and there are like a few more critical ones. Right? Yeah, so as we have discussed earlier, it's a negotiation, it's a kind of like a trade-off where you go for the lesser evil, right? So how do you establish those synergies and like a trade-offs? Okay, so that is given over here in the energy supply. You can see energy demand and land. So related to SDG 1, okay, in the trade-off, okay, this is the situation in synergies. This is like as is given over here. Some of are registering like a blank. Okay, so in another layout where like these SDGs are arranged and how these are arranged. So they are divided into these like a free 5 P's. Okay, so with the people we have one SDG 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 directly like the first 5 ones. They are very individual, like a person based, household based. Then it comes to the planet level. 6, 12, 13, 14 and 5, like air, water, like cleanliness and overall climate change and all of that. Then prosperity, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, okay, like clean energy, decent work, like innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequalities, like sustainable cities, etc. And then finally coming to peace and partnership. Okay, so this also is an architecture, this also is a structure where like how SDGs are actually arranged and kept. Okay. Another arrangement by biosphere society economy we saw previously. So these 4 are more related to the planet. Then here we have sets more related to the society, and here the economy, and overall 17 at the top. Yeah. Another illustration where people, ecological and spiritual like layers are there, and in that these SDGs are kept. If you see their color, so these bottom ones they are quite close to the like a good intensity, like like a good intensity, a good like a chromatic value colors. And then we have like a pastels in this series, and then we have like a blue pastels, like a more spiritual that color scheme at the top. So even the color scheme also wise, you can see like how interestingly like these colors are chosen, right, and arranged. Yeah, so the present UN Secretary General, what he has said in his one of his remarks, okay, while taking like oath of office, humanitarian response, sustainable development and sustaining peace and partnerships are 3 sides of the same triangle. So we have seen it earlier. Humanitarian response, like people, okay, sustainable development, like ecology, environment, and sustaining peace and partnerships. Okay, so overall, like it should last for a long time, like that thing. It should not kind of like again becomes vulnerable to like changes and stuff. Finally, I have come down to the like a last slide of this module, where this interesting like a word cloud was prepared. Maybe you can use it for your own like essays and articles. Okay, so with this we have come to the end of like this module. Yeah, see you all, thank you for joining, see you in the next one.